I think when I got into public safety, I knew that the people I'd be dealing with were going to be in a bad way. Where I got into serving the city with the intention of making it better, not realizing I would never hear from the people who are happy. And that was a struggle for me because I think inherently I want to be told I'm doing a good job. And I think you don't contact your local, state, federal officials to tell them they're doing a good job. You contact them or you bitch about them on the internet, which has been the case more often than not.
Hello, and welcome to the Front Seat Debrief. This podcast is intended to confront the unique mental health challenges that our veterans, first responders, and healthcare professionals face on a daily basis. My name is Josh Campbell. I am a social worker who provides therapy in a private practice, and my efforts are focused on these populations. I am a former Army combat medic and a former paramedic firefighter. When my struggles with PTSD became too great for me to continue working as a paramedic, I went back to school earning my BA in English from American Military University. Then I earned my master's in social work at the University of Michigan. This podcast has grown from my own experience coping with repeated exposures to traumatic incidents, my personal path to healing and understanding, as well as my educational background. I want to examine the lived experience of others in coping with trauma, their journey to find healing, and I believe that learning about someone's upbringing can often provide additional context through which greater understanding of their experiences with trauma can be achieved. It is my sincere hope that the content covered in this episode, as well as the episodes that follow, will provide listeners with a sense of not being alone in their struggles. Furthermore, I hope that by having these deeply personal discussions, we can continue to decrease the stigma surrounding mental health, normalize adverse emotional reactions to extreme circumstances, and build momentum for creating a positive culture shift within these professions. Thank you so much for choosing to listen. If you like what you hear, please like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date with our progress here. Welcome back to the Front Seat Debrief. My guest today is Mr. Mike DeVore. Mike started with Lowell Fire Department in 2004, where he worked until 2017. And then he started as a medical dispatcher at American Medical Response in Grand Rapids in 2015. Additionally, Mike has been the mayor of the city of Lowell for almost 12 years now. Mike, thanks for joining me. How are you?
Yeah, man, I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for the invite. This is going to be fun
Yeah, so
and hopefully helpful.
I hope so. If nothing else, at least as long as we have a good time, right?
Yeah, we always do.
Right. Yeah, so we got to know each other at AMR. I was there for, I guess, three years, about 3 years, I guess. But yeah, we got to know each other on nights, and, night shift on the bus is always a special time and a special group of people working that shift, which we kind of discussed a little bit in the pre-recording. But yeah, why don't you kind of tell us about yourself? Tell us where you grew up, what life was like, etc.
Grew up kind of jumping around, spent a little bit of time in the summer, North Muskegon, but a little bit of time obviously in Detroit, which I'm pretty passionate about. But I'm here, man. I'm Grand Rapids born, Wyoming schooled, Lowell as an adult, live here with just my son. Last 2 years we've had exchange students, which has been super cool. Vietnam last year and Denmark this year. And yeah, I'm really glad to be here, man. I think what you're doing is super important, and so happy as a clam to be here. Really appreciate what you're doing, and I really value our relationship as a whole. So
Well, thank you.
I feel like 3 years on nights getting to know somebody is like 10 years in real life. You know what I mean? And yeah, I had that connection with you from the beginning. So
yeah,
really a lot of value you've added to my life.
Well, geez, I appreciate hearing that. Yeah, you're one of the few dispatchers that I actually got to know because otherwise I try to stay out of there.
Yeah, yeah,
But you always made things better
try
for
to.
us. Like, I mean, even when I was working days, you know, me and Patrick, we we always appreciated hearing you come on the radio before we were getting off. Like, thank God.
It's a hard enough job, man. It's not my job to compound it. It's my job to take a little bit off the top.
Sure.
And if I can do that every day, I feel like I'm doing my job.
Yeah.
And levity is important, I think. You know what I mean? Clinically, it's a hard enough job, you know.
Yeah.
You're not seeing anybody ever on their best day of their life.
Right. For
So you
sure.
don't need to have that pressure with you on that call and then that pressure continue after the call. So if I can take a little bit off the top, I'm always happy to do it.
Yeah. So when you're growing up, were there any influential people or influential moments in your life that kind of steered you toward a life of public service?
I mean, I think it's the blanket answer, but I would say probably 9/11. I
Okay.
think for people in our age group, that's the catalyst for a lot of us. I know it's probably cliche, but I will say when I was in high school, I was at the smokers corner with the D students. That's where I thrived. The just enough to get by crowd. But we had a school resource officer, and I always had such a connection with him and such a respect for the way, as an authority figure, he treated people. And I look back on it now. Obviously, in the moment, we never catch it, right?
Yeah.
Nobody catches any of that in the moment. But I look back on it now, and I think those 4 years of high school really, outside of a couple of just really good teachers, that foray into the public safety sector, I really feel like that is also a catalyst for me
Hmm.
because there's a way to do a hard job but still treat people the right way.
Yeah.
And I probably was in my fifth or sixth year in this business before I realized, that how important that was. And I can't go back now and say thank you, which I wish I could. But uh, yeah, man, I'm comfortable here. I'm comfortable feeling like I'm providing a service to people that they need. You know what I mean? I'm not,
Yeah.
I don't know. I like it. I'm comfortable. I work with really good people and, you know, can't complain about any of that.
Yeah. You went to Park, yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Wyoming Park High School. When did you graduate?
98.
Okay, that's right. I thought
Yep.
you were only a year ahead of me. So where were you when 9/11 happened?
I was in the Rogers Plaza in Wyoming, Secretary of State. My brother and I worked together at Two Men in a Truck. And I was there renewing my chauffeur's license. And I was, I think, third in line finally after what felt like 92 hours of waiting. And they shut the building down.
Mm,
Government buildings all shut down. So I just remember going home. I lived with a couple of buddies from high school in a house that we couldn't afford and didn't take care of. And we sat there and watched TV for probably 6, 8 hours. It's, I think, the first time in my life I ever felt like things were different. You know what I mean?
yeah.
After
Yeah.
all the other stuff, I think I was too young to appreciate the cultural impact. But I was just 21,
Yep.
just sobering up enough to go to the Secretary of State. So you know, we lived within walking distance to a TGI Friday, so we didn't spend a lot of time
Mm,
responsible as
yeah.
21-year-old kids. But
Yeah. Were you living over by the mall?
yeah, we lived at Canal and 41st Street, so
Okay.
we were right over by Rivertown.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it was I don't know, like the day or two after were surreal.
Yeah. And I really felt like people cared about each other more. Like,
Yeah.
sometimes, the tragedy is obviously tragic, but I would like feeling, that feeling of neighbors and feeling of you just don't have it now. It's very toxic right now, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, we are definitely as united as a people as we could have been. I mean, granted with like the obvious outliers and like crimes that were carried out against, different ethnic groups based on closed-minded bullshit, but um yeah, like think about all the American flags on people's vehicles and
Every
stuff.
house, every
Yeah.
car. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good time to see what people can really do if they try.
Yeah. Yeah, and
It sucks that you have to get to that point to really come together like that, but
yeah.
yeah, I think it was an important time, and, really I never thought about doing anything else after that. It's probably super cliche, but
I don't know how cliche it is. I mean, I know most of the people I've talked to um in doing the show, it is definitely something that was on the radar, and it was a part of, the conscious decision to do whatever. But um yeah, I mean, it was a hugely impactful event, and you know, we still talk about the impact of it. Like life after 9/11 was completely different than life before,
yeah,
much like life post COVID is much different than life before.
yeah. But I think that is a perfect example of a nationwide issue that we coulda used to unite, and I feel like we didn't.
Yeah. No, I think you're right.
But I think every generation has that, right? So, after I feel like the country came together really well during and after the Depression, during and after the war. I think every generation has that catalyst incident. It's unfortunate that it always has to be conflict or tragedy,
Right.
you know what I mean? But, and I'm sure in the Kennedy assassination, all that stuff. This is just our, I think, generational glue. I just wish the glue had held maybe a little bit longer.
Right. Yeah. Not looking forward to seeing another event that has that effect, but
It shouldn't have to. I think that's what I keep going back to, when I think about it. It shouldn't have taken that kind of thing for me to meet and spend time with my neighbors. You know what I mean?
yeah.
But we're all outside and we're looking up because there's no longer any planes in the sky. And, now we have a conversation piece to kind of bring us together. But why didn't I just walk over there 6 months prior and say, hey, we just moved in. We're awful kids, but we're going to be good neighbors.
Yeah. Yeah. Um so having been in public service now for 22 years.
Oof.
Yeah. How how do you feel about the work that you do?
I love the work that I do. I, uh, I think I benefit because I get to help patients and crews. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
important to me. It's very important to me to do both. Uh, I I like to think that that reflects in the work that I do, but it's important to do both. The patients, whether it's clinically emergent or not, are having what they view as the worst time. and the people going there to help can help, but also sometimes can't help. So the probability that they're also having the worst time, and I'm lucky enough because where I sit, I get to think I help with both of those.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I honestly I couldn't. I will never, unless they decide, I will never work anywhere else. I just won't do it.
Fair enough.
I'll be there till I'm ready to retire at the robust age of 85 or 86, probably. The way these markets are going.
I'm
But
curious.
there is such a comfort in that for me that I that benefit alone is worth keeping the job.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious about AI. Has there been any discussion from like a medical dispatch point of view about the inclusion of AI or any discussion on whether or not that's going to make your role obsolete?
We haven't gotten to that point yet. Um, we've added a lot of systems and protocols that are uniform for, you know, you could have a paramedic do it, or you could have a customer service person do it and still get, a consistent result. But we haven't really delved into that AI thing. However, I don't think we can stop it. I don't think any company can stop it or any business. But I also think that human aspect in our line of work will never not be important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we've used a lot of technology to better pinpoint addresses or histories or stuff like that. But that I don't think AI can attempt to comfort. I think that has to be human to human.
Yeah,
Hopefully, I hope I'm right.
right. And I would hope so as well. But that said, I mean, how many times have we heard a story on the news about, people talking to AI, Chat GPT about their issues? And, I remember there was one not that long ago where a kid killed himself after he didn't get any of the help that he really needed from AI. But maybe one of the safeguards against, the intrusion of AI into what you specifically do is the fact that EMS is always, the redheaded stepchild of the medical industry and the last frontier for any improvement of any sort, right?
Yeah. Well, also, we're a private company, number one. And number two, EMS, as far as the government's concerned, is really standalone. I mean, like, there's a federal agency for law enforcement and there's a national firefighters academy. I mean, we have NREMT and stuff like that, but after you get your little certificate, there's not a lot more involvement after that. A lot
Yeah.
of the medical control and direction is local. Um, so I think you're right. I think it would be the last one to get it because I think that that investment would have to be so major to replace basically the kid running around the backyard in his diaper while everybody's inside having a formal dinner because that's really what we are. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Our value is not always seen because I
for
think there
sure.
is a value over, you know, other aspects maybe of public safety that aren't, you know, that are comfortable doing the job they thought they were going to do.
Yeah. That just reminded me. I just watched Code 3 again recently. And um have you seen that?
No, that's not. I saw the Asphalt City one with, which I thought was pretty good.
Code 3 I think is a very good movie. and so relatable. But there's a scene where he's trying to get breakfast, and there's a sign on the counter or whatever saying, like, heroes get free coffee, and it lists specifically law enforcement and fire, and he's like, what the fuck? So, I don't know. That's what popped into mind. I think in memes and videos, so
Yeah, me too. Have you seen Mercy, the Chris Pratt movie?
no.
So the premise is it's not that far in the future, and the entire justice system is AI based. So if you get arrested for a crime, in this case, he's a detective who gets arrested for allegedly murdering his wife. But you sit in this chair and you have access to all the technology, cell phone data, video cameras, all this. You have 90 minutes to prove your innocence to this AI judge, or you're executed right there in the chair and the trial's over. Stuff like that, it's scary because I don't feel like it's far off. You know what I mean? And it's not ever going to be perfect. And I think to depend on something with so many flaws is the exact same as depending on a human because we all have flaws. So if you already have a good version of AI in human form, in certain scenarios that doesn't need to be replaced or replicated.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in your time in this career field, how much negativity, like how much of the bullshit have you dealt with? Like the superfluous drama that comes with it.
Enough that I know it's a problem. Um, and I think it's case sensitive, right? So that drama could be somebody thinking they were doing something they're not doing, or thinking something was going to be something it's not. I'll tell you, I've dealt with it more on the political side of my life than I have on the public safety side of my life. You know what I mean? I think when I got into public safety, I knew that the people I'd be dealing with were going to be in a bad way. Where I got into serving the city with the intention of making it better, not realizing I would never hear from the people who are happy. And that was a struggle for me because I think inherently I want to be told I'm doing a good job. And I think you don't contact your local, state, federal officials to tell them they're doing a good job. You contact them or you bitch about them on the internet, which has been the case more often than not.
Yeah.
Um, but I think training myself to know the more vocal somebody is, the more in the minority they probably are. And that if I'm hearing from two or three people, that means 4,800 and some change are probably at a minimum content, if not happy. But to train yourself to get there mentally, it's probably been my number one struggle across my work life, you know? And I don't have that group of people like you and all the people at AMR and all the former people from AMR that I'm in touch with, or, my fire department friends. I don't have that net, that safety net where I can reach out and go, man, Josh, this shit sucked, and you at least have a similar experience.
Yeah.
I have four other council members, and the turnover on my council has been worse than our turnover during the union stuff.
Really.
My longest tenured other council members 8 years, 9 years, and the other ones are a year and a half or less.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of value in realizing the value in the people you're around, but getting to that point can be a struggle. I think especially for people like me who are content to just do it myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Likely the first 2 or 3 times I'm gonna do it fucking wrong, but nobody's gonna know I fucked it up twice except for me, and I'm not telling anybody. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say I struggle with that more in the political side of my life than I do in my work life. And at least you can compartmentalize your full-time job by saying, "Yeah, I'm compensated to do it." You know what I mean? Where, "Oh, okay, it might have been a shitty week, but I'm still gonna get a check." Or, "It was a great week, and on addition to that, I got a check." Where I go down to these meetings and stuff, and there isn't that I'm not saying I would ever do it for the money, but it just isn't there.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time, working as a firefighter or dispatcher where you get that check and you're like, damn, was it worth all of that? Like, terrible week. And that's what people,
Really,
okay.
very rarely, very rarely. There's a couple of times where you go home, you've done it, those 4-day weekends that just never fucking stop. But you balance that out with the good days, and I think in I've been lucky in this aspect, but I think the majority of the time the good has outweighed the bad. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of it's the people. When I was on fire, I worked with all my neighbors, my friends. And then I got to AMR and there was a couple of crossovers, people I had worked with previous, people from Rockford, people from wherever. Um, but that relationship with those people is invaluable. So if you're able to focus on that part of it, you'll rarely run into the situation where the money doesn't negate whatever you went through. We all have those stretches, we've all had them.
Yeah.
Sometimes they go longer than others. Sometimes it's, a bad day and the other 6 in your pay period are really good. But no, I would say I've been lucky in that regard to not experience that maybe as many as some.
Yeah. Do you feel like being in dispatch gives you some isolation from some of that?
I feel like I'm shielded from some of that, protected maybe by the walls and the doors, but that can be a detriment as much as it can be a benefit. You know what I mean? Because if people I care about are struggling, I wanna join them in their struggle.
Right.
And I think that locked door sometimes is detrimental to that cause. I've strived over the years to make people feel comfortable knocking on that door. And but yeah, I feel like it can be a shield, but it can also be a detriment. The the thing I benefit from is that I'm able to just hang up when my part of the job is done. Where you guys are there beginning to end, and sometimes that end is not what you want. But that's detrimental too because sometimes I do want that follow-up. I do want that, how to go.
Yeah.
So those relationships can help in that too.
Yeah. And Alex and I talked about that a bit and the fact that, it's so easy being on scene dealing with like an absolute shit show to forget that, well, somebody in the office had to take this phone call and deal with whatever chaos happened to be coming through that line. Um, yeah, has there ever been a time or do you have any instances that stand out where like you've completed your portion of a call and you hang up the line, you're just like, I don't know what the fuck I just did.
Yeah, I've had a couple of really good ones, without giving too much away. I had a lady just screaming at me that this guy was dying. Is that what you want? Is that what you want? No, man, that's obviously, if I wanted that, I'd be in the wrong fucking line of work, you know? But you, I didn't have the ability at that time to get her in that headspace where I needed her to be to help the person she was with. And that's frustrating because we all like to think we're very good at our jobs.
Yeah.
And 99 times out of 100, I probably get that person where they need to be. But it's that one time that you don't. I had one guy and he was such an asshole to me. And, I can't breathe. Okay, well, I'm trying to get him to talk less because it is clearly difficult for him. I thought for 2.5 days, I said, this guy hung up on me. That's so rude. You called me, buddy. I didn't go out there soliciting runs, and I found out that he had clasped in his chair with the phone in his hand. So he hadn't hung up on me. You know what I mean? So I spend my time assuming the wrong thing,
Right.
but I'm able to get that follow up maybe a little more than others, and it helps.
Yeah.
But I want to do it the right way 100 times out of 100, not 99.
Yeah.
So to battle myself back to that, hey man, I didn't get 99% on anything in high school. So I'm clearly evolving.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a struggle. And the unknown is scary, I think, for all of us. You know,
Yeah.
if you guys take somebody up to a floor or, you take them into ICU or something, you're eventually going to get back to that hospital and maybe have that ability to follow up. Where I sometimes do because of those built relationships, but a lot of times I'm just wondering if I really helped that person. And
Yeah.
that's ultimately what I'm trying to do.
Right. I think it's worth mentioning too that in Grand Rapids, in your role, you are only responsible for the medical dispatching for American Medical Response. And maybe you can clarify this if I fuck it up, but there's county dispatch and then state police also have a dispatch. Is that right?
And the city of Grand Rapids does.
Okay.
So, based on where you live, you call 911. If you're in Kent County or Ottawa County or Allegan, the parts of Allegan that we still cover, your call goes to them. They do the address, police, fire, or medical. If it's a medical call in Kent County and the city of Grand Rapids, they will patch you into the ambulance company that services your area. So if it's police or fire, I'll never talk to those people. In Ottawa and Allegan County, they prioritize their own medical calls as well. So that handoff from Ottawa and Allegan to us already has the information, which
Okay.
a lot of times makes it more difficult. Hey, do you have a door code for this place? Hey, do you know how much the baby weighs? No, because I didn't talk to that caller.
Gotcha.
So now you're at 2 or 3 steps to dial back and get that information. But yeah, if it's police or fire, I'll never talk to the person and I'll likely never know the call existed, which is good for me because I'm passionate about EMS. I don't have that same passion, I think, for police or fire.
And it's really, well, it's a complicated process, a complicated system. In some respects, it really streamlines things because you, at least in Kent County, you have the ability to talk to the person and you're able to get information directly. And you don't have to worry about those other moving parts. For instance, like a cardiac arrest. Um, I've been in the office when someone was providing instructions on how to perform CPR. And that is all they can really focus on. Thankfully, police and fire are most likely responding to something like that, and you didn't have to dick with any of that.
Yeah. And it's nice because I can focus and I can just be with that person. But also, then if something gets fucked up, that's on you. You know what I mean? Or that's the hang up for me is like, okay, the paramedics are there. Don't hang up on me. Just set the phone down and let me listen to this outcome. And, you know, we've cut back too on radio traffic so much to kind of streamline the system and leave the lines open for emergency traffic or whatever, that I don't even get that priority to the hospital.
Oh,
Where
wow.
that used to be peace of mind for me too, because you'd go priority 1 and everybody would go. Then you'd get there and you'd go priority 3 to Butterworth, and I'd be more content to say, "This one's gonna have a good outcome." Where we don't have that interaction anymore. So it streamlines the system, but from a follow-up perspective, it can be a little detrimental.
Mm, sure.
And also, there's so many people out there listening and eavesdropping, and I mean, cutting the radio traffic, every agency's doing it, and I
Yeah.
think it's the right thing to do. I mean, the last thing I want is for somebody to hear something's happening to their neighbor, and they go over there, maybe with the best of intentions, or maybe to be nosy, and then you interfere with that care that person needs.
Yeah.
So, as much as I get it and as much as I support it, I do feel like there's some detriment, at least in my role. Um,
Sure.
you know,
Now, how does that work for you in dispatch when it comes to that? Is all that done on like a computer system where they like click and route to a hospital or
yep, all that
okay.
radio traffic's gone. So my job really ends. You take and prioritize the call. You'll dispatch that crew over the radio with just the priority, and then if it's a higher acuity call, or one of those off the wall places, a quick, cross streets or neighborhood or something. Everything else is done through their trucks, en route, on scene, transport priority, hospital destination, arrival, nurse at patient side. None of that is verbally communicated. I can see it, right? So I know what phase of the call you're in. But yeah, none of it's verbally transmitted anymore,
Gotcha.
which is a double edged sword.
Yeah. Um, so does that mean there's no more like calling level 0 out while you're at a hospital type shit?
There ideally shouldn't be. I mean, if the system's busy, it's still going to happen.
Yeah.
And, I think the crews deserve to know. We have started doing levels when you clear. So if I clear you and I say level 2, then you hear 2 more calls go out, you can assume that you're probably it, which I think has value. And we don't even do post to post on the radio anymore.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. It's all through the MDT, the basically a fancy zip it with GPSs, if you remember the zip its, but yeah. Better than a pager, but I don't think as good as maybe human interaction. But we do spend a lot more time on the phone with the crews. So, if you do have a question, and I think that is a relationship builder.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Cause I mean, yeah, it's really hard to have like a reasonable discussion like with the inclusion of that human element over
yeah.
radio.
Well, in the moment too, because if you don't have it in the moment and you're 2 hours into 12, so much more shit is going to happen in those other 10 hours. You know what I mean? And then by the time you get back, you've either forgotten about it or something more important has happened or you just want to go home,
Yeah.
So I think in the moment is important to take that time.
No, I would agree. Um how much how much of the trauma from the work would you say has left work with you? Like how much of that shit do you bring home?
More than I would like, I think, is the safe answer. And I think it goes back to what we talked about with that unknown. I try not to take it home because I don't think it's fair to the people here. You know what I mean? Um, but I also think anybody with any empathy or any desire to do the correct thing in this line of work, it's unavoidable. It sucks. A lot of the time it sucks. And a lot of the time there's no way around it, but you have to strive to get to that point where you're taking care of yourself too. I'm no use to anybody else, patients or crews, if I'm a fucking mess. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. How those traumatic elements that, we carry with us, how has that maybe impacted or shifted the way you think or feel about the job?
I think you become calloused where I think earlier in your career, these seem smaller things seem like bigger things, if that makes sense. Then as you get callous to it, I don't want to say you lose empathy, but I feel like it's inevitable to not lose empathy, but preserve it. You know what I mean? Like mentally, I only have so much to give. I have to be more diligent about where I spend that money or where I spread that empathy.
Yeah.
And it sucks, but I think it's inevitable to most people who have the empathy to begin with. If you go into it calloused and careless and whatever, that's never going to affect you. But I think if you're in it for the right reasons, it's inevitable that it will eventually catch up to you.
Yeah. Because, yeah, if you come into it calloused and like you're not affected by that stuff, like, are you truly there for your patients in the best way possible?
Right. Yeah. Well said. Are you providing the service the best way you can if you don't give a shit? But I think that's any job. You know what I mean? If you're doing a half-ass job, you have to look inward. You know, I think it's easier to blame the company or it's easier to blame the tools you're given. And I think human nature is to find the easiest path for it not to be your fault. But I think
Yeah.
sometimes you have to say, this shit is my fault. And I have to work on making it better. Or
Yeah.
help the people around you, which I think we do a really good job of being there for each other, of being supported from the higher ups, the leadership. That is going to extend people's empathy, extend people's energy, extend people's careers. And I think you'll get more people in the long run still there for the right reasons.
Yeah. Is this an okay time to take a break?
Yep, perfect time.
Alrighty. I'll see you in a few.
I'll be here.
Hi, it's Josh. I just wanted to break in here real quick while we're taking a break from the show. We're looking for more people to be on next season. I will probably be starting recordings near the end of the summer, and we'd love to have voices that we haven't had before. So far, pretty much everyone that's been on the show has been a contact of mine. Sadly, not all of my contacts are willing to spill their guts on a podcast. So I'd love to have a discussion with anyone that might be interested in coming on the show and telling their story. We'd love to hear more from law enforcement, maybe some of the other branches of service. I've got Army covered. We'd love to hear from some police officers. I've got healthcare covered. That's not to say I don't want more healthcare stories. I think there's a lot to be discussed about that. I recorded an episode with a nurse turned social worker just recently. In fact, you may be listening to that episode now. There's a lot to discuss about healthcare in general. So many things like patient provider ratios and the burnout. It's a rough career. Um, so give me a shout, email me the front seat debrief at gmail.com and let's have a discussion and get something set up. Otherwise, keep listening to the show. I hope you're enjoying the content, and like, share, and subscribe. Thanks. So we were just talking about the trauma aspect that you bring home, yeah? Okay. Kind of diving back into that. Have those traumatic experiences kind of helped shape the way you think and feel about your job?
Hmm, that's a good question. Um, I think so. I think it has to. I think, you know, we deal with such a wide range of calls that it's an emergency to them. But if it's an emergency also to you, you're maybe not giving that reassurance and that, I guess, the calming voice that you're supposed to. And I think in the moment, you have to put that aside, but it's still there. So, you get home or you get to wherever you're going after work. You know, day people actually go do stuff after work. I don't
Yeah.
get the hell home, but I think it has to because you have to be able to shut that off in the moment. But, it's a backed up hose. It's eventually going to have to be turned back on.
Yeah.
And I think how you turn that back on is important. And if you don't acknowledge that you maybe don't always do it the right way, you're going to continue to repeat that pattern. And that can be dangerous for your longevity. That can be dangerous for your, quality of work. That can be dangerous for your home life and relationships. It has to be important to you for you to actually want to work on.
Yeah.
And I've always tried to keep that, in the pocket. Like, it has to be important to me if I do want to do this until I'm at that retirement age, which I do. I have to use the tools that are available to me
Yeah.
because they're there. You sometimes have to look a little harder for them, and I think that can be a deterrent to some people who just want, the quick and easy solution. But how often in life is the quick and easy solution the correct one? Rarely.
Yeah.
Anything worth doing is going to be difficult.
For sure. And that kind of brings us into the next, you know, section here, like the impact of the negative experiences, whether it's like, the extra bullshit that comes from, working with other people in the confines of, a company, or, the traumatic element. Like, how has that impacted you at home in your personal life?
It's made me almost abrasive in situations, maybe in my personal life where, people present me with a problem. Even in my, side projects, I'm like, this is not a fucking problem compared to what I dealt with last night. You know what I mean? And that's not fair to the people who think it's a problem. If I'm going to say, it's an emergency to you at work, or it's important to you at work that you're calling for an intervention, I should try to be the same way in my personal life because it is important to that relationship that I'm dealing with. And I'm not always so good at that. I'm not, I like this. There's bigger fucking problems. You got to let this one go. Well, no, you don't because it's important to you. And that is a constant. And I've struggled with that, the majority of my professional career. It's like I work in emergency services, then I go home or I go somewhere else. where they're having a problem too, and I'm minimizing that to them, and I think that's unfair. I don't I have not yet found a solution to that, um, but I'm cognizant of it, I'm aware of it, I try to be better every day, but it becomes a struggle more and more as, you know, people turn little problems into big problems. But to them, it might be a big problem. So I'm kind of a piece of shit to tell them, your problem's not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? I don't at work. I don't in my professional career. So what gives me the right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm very self-deprecating in that arena because I keep working on it, but I don't feel like it ever gets better.
Yeah, we kind of need to adjust our frame of reference to, reality outside of this bubble, right?
And that's what it is. It's such a bubble. The best friendships I have are people in that same bubble, which is good to talk about, work related shit or, the systemic problems, because I think healthcare as a whole is a systemic problem in this country. Um, but it really minimizes the personal struggles I think everybody has. So I don't know where that sweet spot is, but I'm Oak Island, man. Those guys are never gonna find the fucking gold, but they're gonna keep looking. And I'm gonna keep looking, and if I never find it, that's the thing. If you work hard to get to a goal, you don't always have to reach that goal to be successful. The work itself can be your success. You know, I'm sure you dealt with that, you know, before your EMS career. You know, the goal was to put in the work and keep us safe, and I think you did that, whether the overall goal was ever reached or not. So everybody compartmentalizes, but not enough people, I think, work for that solution for themselves. I think you spend so much time taking care of other people that sometimes you can get lost. And that's why I think, mental health and that stigma behind it, I think it's important to squash that. You want to make people feel like it's okay not to have all your shit together, as long as you're working to get your shit together.
Yeah, for sure. Have you experienced any of that stress pouring over or, I don't know, kind of coming out into negative or maladaptive coping mechanisms?
Yeah. Yeah. Sure have. I can do, I like to tell myself I'm this big hero for quitting smoking, but you take up vaping, which I can now do in the house, in the car, around the kids, all these
Right.
places I couldn't smoke. So I'm doing it fucking 10 times more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that's I, I rarely drink. I have some family history there that scares me.
Okay.
And I also know my personality is very addictive. I mean, there's a 80s toy line that I'm a huge fan of, and it really brings me that joy and comfort from childhood. And I've spent an insane, unnecessary, borderline irresponsible amount of money on recapturing that nostalgia because that's comfortable for me. And those coping mechanisms, and I justify it by saying, well, it's not drinking or drugs. Well, guess what, man? It's still something.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And, caffeine for working nights is always going to be, a crutch to get you through it. But yeah, I justify it by saying it could be worse. It could be worse. It could be worse. But yeah, I have them.
Yeah.
I have them. But I like to think that they only negatively affect me. You know what I mean? And, I justify it that way.
I mean, a lot of the toys that you've picked up, I've s-
Action figures?
I'm
collectibles.
I'm sure at some point
Okay.
that will benefit Brady like down the road, right?
That's true.
Maybe.
Yeah. The resale value is going to be good.
Yeah. Yeah, what's your most recent acquisition?
Well, they've just done a crossover with Transformers, so I've been picking up those. So I got my Optimus Prime He-Man. Uh, I'm more focused on the stuff that I remember from when I was younger. You know,
Yeah.
all this new crap, the kids can have it. But I don't know, man. It makes me feel safe, I think. Comfortable, safe. You know what I mean? It harkens back to a much better time. You know, broken home and whatever you want to call it. I had a pretty fucking great childhood.
Yeah.
And, now my dad and my grandma are both gone. So that's another thing. That nostalgia just increases, I think, in value when you do that. But that's how I compartmentalize. That's how I can come home. And even if I feel like shit, there's a place I can go that will take me back to that good time. And it works 100% of the time.
Hmm.
And then, of course, I'm nicotine laced the whole time I'm doing it. So there's that vice too. But, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, it just takes me back to the days lighting up a cowboy killer and playing with, G.I. Joe on the floor.
yeah. Smoking in the basement thinking my mom would never know, but there's no way not to know. I mean, I'm a fucking idiot for thinking I was getting away with it. I never was. I was never getting away with it.
Yeah. Did your parents smoke in the house at all?
Yeah, my mom used to do that. I don't even know if I should say this on something being recorded, but she used to come home on her lunch break, sneak into the basement, put her little rubber raincoat on, her little hair cover on, smoke, and then go wash her hands and go back to work. But as I became a smoker, I realized you're not fooling anybody.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, both my parents smoked.
Man, I'll tell you, that's been like the biggest draw for me to vaping was just like getting rid of that cigarette smell.
Yeah, and I didn't even notice it until I quit. But
Yeah.
now, you walk out of a store, you're doing something and you smell it, and I honestly, I miss it every day.
Yeah.
Not the smell, I just miss that comfort.
Yeah. And I'll still have a cigarette from time to time. Either like a particularly bad day, like fuck it, I just want a cigarette. Or like a really good time, like, hey, riding motorcycles around with friends and just want to have a beer and a cigarette, like, that kind of shit.
Yeah. Well, I bought a pack at my family reunion last year because I was having a great fucking time, and we were drinking. And then, I got a couple stashed around for those days where the vape isn't just gonna do it.
Yeah.
And, you gotta put in the work to do it, right? Because you gotta go outside.
Yeah.
You gotta really earn it, where you have a vape in your pocket and you don't have to earn it.
Right.
But, yeah, that's been a struggle for me.
Yeah.
Luckily, I never fell into any of the other vices because I don't think I have the willpower to get myself out of those.
Mm.
But, yeah, that's my one. That's my good one.
Yeah. And that's probably sufficient.
Yeah, it'll do for now.
Yeah. Um, have you had any issues with like self-destructive behavior at all?
Now, not physically, I don't think. Um, but mentally, I think I have. I will go do something just to take my mind off shit, maybe instead of addressing it in the moment. With the full knowledge that it'll still be there when I get back from whatever I'm doing. Whether what I'm doing is financially responsible or not is a separate discussion we could have. But um, I've even in parenting, I've focused more on experiences over material things. So I do like to go do those things and to have those adventures and experiences, but it's dangerous for me when I do it to deter from dealing with whatever problem has come up. It's going to be there when I get back. It's going to be less fresh, less rational. I'm really taking I'm really making a concerted effort to deal with that in the moment lately. I'm proud to say I've been talking to somebody about it outside, but a
Okay.
perfect example is I wish I could talk to them while I'm having a cigarette because it would calm us both down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm guilty of it, aware of it, but also guilty of it.
Yeah. It's a coping mechanism, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, I, f- I find myself in the flight response as much as I'm in the fight response. And I think the flight works a lot better if you just have the fight first. Then I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do to enjoy it, not to distract me from something worse.
Yeah. Because how much can you enjoy something if you're distracting yourself from something
Yeah.
else?
And I find myself on edge too about, quite honestly, shit that just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If I'm driving home from work and I've had a tough shift, somebody's in front of me going too slow, I get pissed off. Somebody's passing me going too fast, I'm equally pissed off. So in a scenario like that, I'm clearly the problem.
Right?
You know what I mean? I'm clearly the problem.
Yeah.
So it's just getting help with trying to be more rational has really been my push behind it.
Yeah. And, I don't know if this is any comfort, but that was very relatable to me. So I,
It
I
is actually.
understand. Yeah. So when you say you've been talking to someone, you mean you've found a therapist that you've been working
Yeah.
with?
Yep.
Okay.
It took some doing. I think it was important enough to me that I was content to be overly picky.
Okay.
And I did talk to Alex about it. Just the steps, the beginning steps, how I'm feeling, which is really cool to have people in leadership roles make you feel heard and valued. And it's the same thing I feel talking to you right now. I mean, I'm more comfortable being honest and talking about the real problem because I value this time. But yeah, I was picky about it, but I found somebody that I've noticed the benefit from.
Yeah. How long have you been speaking to this person?
It hasn't been. It's been 4 weeks, a little over 4 weeks,
Okay. So still
but
fresh.
I've needed to do it for years longer than that.
Yeah. Um, do you feel any regret for not having done it sooner?
Yeah. Yep. Every day. The more I feel better, the more I feel worse about not doing it sooner. You know what I mean? And this harkens back to quitting smoking. I felt great. And I'm like, why didn't I do this when I was in my 30s? And I could really enjoy this, this better physical health. And now I'm in my, don't put that in the recording. Uh, but I'm finding that, why didn't I work on the mental health when I worked on the physical health?
Yeah.
So there's that joy of finally starting to feel better mixed with that regret of not doing it 10, 15 years ago,
Do you
which
think that,
creates another struggle while you're solving one.
yeah.
The difference is I can work on the now. I can't work on 10 years ago. There's not a thing I can do about that.
Well, and do you think that the regret you have is warranted?
I think it's irrational
Did you
because
say
there's
irrational?
irrational. Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing I can do about it.
Right.
So it's irrational to let it bother me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, you know, I think it's human nature at the same time to everybody wants that time machine, I think. You know what I mean? And I think that's why Back to the Future is such a timeless movie
Love it.
and cinematic perfection because everybody can relate to wanting to go back. I'd love to go back to when I was 30 and be like, "Hey man, mentally shit's going to get hard for you. Fuck that stigma. Just go fix it." So, yeah, it's irrational, but it's there. And, and I think it's human nature for it to be there. I feel that way with relationships I fucked up over years. I feel that way about, my reaction to certain things in the moment. And but I also feel like I'm correcting those behaviors too. So the value in recognizing it's a problem, there's no value in recognizing it's a problem unless you find the value in correcting that problem.
Yeah. And looking back, had you had a time machine available to you, do you think 30-year-old Mike wanted to hear anything from, you know, mid mid some other decade Mike?
Thank
Like,
you. No, I don't. I think you would have said, "You know what? I'm strong. That shit doesn't happen to me. It will never affect me. Fuck you. You're wasting my time. I'm going to be good forever." You're not going to be good forever. But I'm glad now that I'm old enough to recognize there's no value in going back because you're right. That person wouldn't have listened to a thing I said. It's no different than talking to your kids. You tell
oh my
them
God.
not to do something when they're 8 or 10, and they're probably going to still do it. Um, but then when they're, Brady's 19 now, and
God
he's
damn.
coming to me saying, I really now see the value in that lesson. I
Yeah.
really now see the value in that. And that's cool because he's probably going to be all right. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That ability for them to recognize means you did something right with them along that path, whether
Yeah.
you saw it in the moment or not. But
Right.
I also think I have a great fucking life, man. I have a really good life. So if I go back and I change that, do I end up where I am now? So maybe I don't want to change it
Can't
because
upset the
I'm really,
space-time
really in a
continuum.
good place. And
Yeah.
I think the hurdles that get you to the finish line need to be there for you to appreciate the finish.
Well, yeah. And it all comes back to this being like growth and maturing. And, it's a long road, and, that additional perspective you gain from all those years, all those miles, like, that is something that we could not have appreciated.
Yeah. I think it's the longest short road ever. You know, I'm I'm going back to talk to this person. That person thinks they're never going to get old. Their body's never going to give up on them. Their heart is never going to give up on them. And then before you know it, you're there. Like, I don't think I should be the age I am now. You know, mentally, I don't act like it. I do when I have to. I have that ability to turn it on, but in those down times, I don't. I'm just a child with a lot of bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
But experience is important if you use it correctly. I mean, if you repeat the same behaviors, you're not learning anything. So it is the growth. The growth is important and it comes for everybody at different times. I work with people who are considerably younger than all of us and, more mentally stable than I ever could have imagined being at that age, or more fiscally responsible, or more, tunnel vision to where they want to go. But that experience for everybody is holds value in I think different ways.
I agree. So, what would you say? You mentioned relationships. I'm curious, what has the impact of your work and your mental health been on your relationships, either romantically or even just like friendships?
I've found myself attracted to those friendships more with people I think are going to have similar experiences because I think you're more comfortable. I'm more comfortable talking to you about this shit because you've been through it than I would be. I think that's why I was so picky finding somebody to talk to because my natural reaction is, you don't fucking understand. I'm going to the next person, next person, next person. So I found my relationship building has been with similar minded people, which has a lot of benefit because I have some really great friends. But I think it's been a detriment to my parenting, maybe more than I'd like it to be. And then outside of that, I am at a point in my life where I am so content to just be by myself outside of, my parenting, which I'm legally obligated to continue doing, and my work balance. But I enjoy being by myself, and I don't think that's the best for my mental health, maybe, but I also think it's really great for my mental health because the last thing I want to do is project onto somebody who doesn't deserve it. And we talked about work earlier and how I can't be there for somebody in an emergency if I'm a pile of shit. I feel like that about relationships too. You know, it's not worth wasting somebody else's time if I'm not giving them what they deserve. And, and I can't. And I just, quite honestly, am content the way it is. You know what I mean? And I'm also at that point where I want to be able to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And my schedule at work allows for that. I'm not 9 to 5. I do have long stretches off all at once. So I don't want to answer to two, three, four people if I just want to leave for a few days. So yeah, I'm very content in the relationships I've built. And I'm very content and happy to not build unnecessary relationships. If that, I don't know if any of that makes sense.
No, it
It
does.
sounded a lot to me like rambling, but
No, I thought it made sense. What would you say some of the impacts on how you parent or your parenting style have been?
in a weird way, I find myself both more empathetic as a parent and now a grandparent, and less empathetic. More empathetic because I realize that struggle exists. I think it's harder for kids now than it has ever been. I mean, would we be sitting here talking to each other if there was Twitter and camera phones and video cameras everywhere when we were kids? Probably not. I think it's harder for them, so I'm more empathetic to that struggle, but I'm always finding myself less empathetic to what I view as a smaller problem. I've always been a don't complain to me about stuff you can control type of parent. You know what I mean? If you want to sit and bitch about the weather raining out your bonfire, we can complain about that because you can't control that. Like, I'm not happy in this situation. Well, let's find a way to get you to where you will be. Um, so I think it's a double edged sword. I'm better at it, but I'm also worse at it. The grandparent thing is fucking easy. You just buy them all kinds of shit, sugar them up, and then they go home. And you have no financial or emotional responsibility outside of that visit. But it's been just me and Brady since he was in fifth grade. And, I've found myself more as a friend than a parent sometimes when I think it should have been the other way around. And I feel like I've failed him a lot in that regard. And that's one of the things I've been working on outside of here is like I sometimes do feel like I maybe failed him in areas where I could have been a value add, but I took that friend road instead of that parent road. In the moment, I wanted that connection, but it wasn't helpful to him in the course of his life. So it's been both.
Looking at the man Brady has become, though, do you see what you have kind of identified as a shortcoming in your parenting as being present as a negative character flaw in who Brady is now?
In very, very few instances, I feel like that. In most instances of those situations that I've created, I feel like he's thrived to spite me. You know what I mean? Despite, my failures. And I've gotten very lucky. You know what I mean? If I'm a gambler, I hit the jackpot with that kid. Um, and I would never project that onto him, my failures. Um, but they're there. In the back of my mind, they're there. But very rarely do I feel like he hasn't overcome where I feel like I've let him down, which makes it a little bit easier.
Kids are resilient like that, aren't they?
Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah. No, and I mean, thank God, right? Because
Right. Yeah,
I mean, if we had to be faced head on with like every little fuck up we made as a parent, like every interaction we have with our kids, like,
what a nightmare.
oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
But I see his interactions and his relationships, and I see a lot of similarities, and I take a lot of pride in that. And then I see him interact in situations where I would have probably taken an irrational road, to get where I wanted to be. And he's not taking that road. So I feel like he's taken what I perceive maybe as failure and used it maybe as a educational tool. So that brings me some peace of mind. And I think sometimes you have to let your kids work it out on their own. The struggle is, did I pick the right time to let him work it out on his own? And did I pick the right time to intervene? But I don't got it. I got no fucking room to complain, man. You know what I mean? I feel
Yeah.
like such a piece of shit even complaining about it because he's a great kid. Despite me and because of me, whatever that balance is, that's not for me to decide.
Right. Yeah. And I think you can be proud of who he is.
I am.
It's been a hot minute
Yeah,
since I've seen him. But no, he's always been a nice kid, and I mean, it's kind of mind blowing to think that he's 19. But
I know. But, and sometimes I'll hear him talk to people the way I would talk to people, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Get him. You don't take no shit off nobody.
it's good.
Yeah. But again, that's the relationship I would rather focus on. It's always been me and him. And, and I've made my peace with the fact that someday that's probably going to end. So until it ends, I'm going to ride that horse to the finish line. I love it. I love it. I know it has to end. Everything has to end, but in the moment, I'm not ready for it to end.
Yeah. Well, and I mean that's good, right? Because it keeps you kind of grounded and actively engaged in the moment, right?
Yeah. And it helps with the other stuff we talked about too, because when I come home, I ultimately know, you know, he's going to be here and that's going to be a value add. No matter what day I've had, that kid is still here in the living room. And that's pretty fucking cool. And I don't want to project that onto him either. You know what I mean? Whatever happened to me throughout the day. He's very empathetic and he's very caring and he's very loving and he's always asking, but I only want to share with them the stuff that makes him warm and comfortable and maybe proud of his dad a little bit. I don't ever want to pass on that other stuff you know, that you and I take to bed every day.
What what would you say the effects of your work have been on the way you view society as a whole?
I view society as a whole. Oh, that's a good question. As somebody who's independent and self-sufficient, I sometimes find myself questioning, the why. Like, why has it come to this point? I mean, is this really a time where you need intervention? Is it the easy way out? Is it necessary? Is it really a struggle for you? And you hear it all the time. Well, I think if I get there by ambulance, I'll be seen faster. Well, that's not the case. So, are you using us to expedite something that you don't really need? But I also feel like it's not my place to tell people what is an emergency to them. You know, I think I think society as a whole is better off for getting people comfortable with asking for help, but society as a whole sometimes uses that help as a cop out. You know what I mean? If that makes sense. It's a struggle for me because just because it's not an emergency to me doesn't mean shit to the person who it is an emergency to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm responsible to be that intervention regardless. And that's what I need to do. And that's what, the crews need to do. And I'm sure they struggle with the same thing. I'm sure you've had those homes you get to and you're like, why are we here? You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, and that's the struggle. Society as a whole, I find more in my uh, political role. I don't like to call it politician. I like to call it community service, but more in that role, I have, I think, overall a more negative view of society. I think in my professional career, people call and they ask for help, and we send help, and we get them where they need to go, and that's the fucking job.
Yeah.
But in my political role, a lot of it is people complaining, but not complaining with the intent of finding a solution, or maybe only complaining when shit affects them. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I think that's selfish. And I think, I'm responsible to represent the populace as a whole, not you and your neighborhood or what's best for you and six other people. So I would say sitting on council has more negatively affected my view of society than any other scenario I've ever been in my life. And I think with technology and social media and anonymous commenting, these people don't have to be accountable. And I think that's the most detrimental thing to society is the lack of accountability. And admittedly, I've been guilty of it before. I'll say something on social media that I would never say publicly in my role. You know what I mean? So it's hypocritical of me to say, but it's really created an unfair level of comfort for people to not be open minded, accountable, solution creating, you know. Well, I don't
Yeah.
want this. Well, what do you want? Perfect example. If you look at what Lowell Township right now, thankfully it's their problem, but is going through with this data center thing. There's a huge plot of land. It was originally slated to be hotel and retail. And the community as a whole complained that it'd be too many cars, too much traffic, too much impact on, the roads and the community. So you put something out there or proposal out there for 6 cars a day and basically a standalone business that just wants to be left alone, and that's not correct either. But none of the people want to have a solution that is actually viable. Well, we want it to stay farmland. Well, that land hasn't been farmed in years. I mean, it's a field by a highway. Um, so that's my struggle. Don't come to me with a problem unless you want help with a solution that
Yeah.
benefits everyone, not just benefits you.
Yeah, and that's tough. And I know data centers are a huge hot button issue right now. Um, yeah,
It's just a lot of people, I feel like, and not just in that instance, but overall, they want to go out to eat, but they don't want the restaurant there. And that's
right.
unreasonable.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You want all these benefits and you want all these services and things, but you don't want what comes along with them or what facilitates them being available to you. You know what I mean? I don't want to pay that high of taxes, but I also still want my neighborhood patrolled and my roads plowed, and that shit doesn't come from the sky. Like there's a cost associated with everything we do.
yeah.
You know, so I find the struggle is more in that aspect of my life than my actual work life.
That's probably okay, right?
I think so. I think as long as it's your problem and you're not projecting it onto other people, it's okay that it's your problem. You know, you're allowed to think and believe and feel however you want, but if it negatively affects other people, then it's a problem. And I'm solution based. Like I'll never come to you and say, "Hey, I think what you did is stupid," but I'll come to you and say, "Hey, why didn't you do it A, B, and C way?" You know, I'm solution driven.
Yeah. So what what was it, do you think, that finally was the tipping point for you to seeking, therapy?
I was thinking about it more than I wasn't. And once I hit that peak, I was like, man, the only way back, I can't do this myself. I'm not smart enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm not experienced enough. But there's people out there who are that are available to me. You know, and I think it's you tell your kids if you don't know, go find somebody who does. But I don't think we as adults practice that enough. You know, and I also think seeing people you care about, people you respect, doing it too helps. You know, if if I don't have that open door policy with the people at work, if I don't have higher ups that really see the value in it, if I don't have people like you in my life doing stuff like this, that I don't feel as comfortable. But yeah, it was a problem that I couldn't solve on my own, but I knew it needed to be solved. And the only way to do that is to find somebody smarter and better than you. Also, I've reached a point in my life where I care so much less about what other people think. You know, that's the big one, I think. Because even if I had done it in my younger years, I probably wouldn't have felt comfortable with people knowing it or talking about it or, suggesting it to other people. But now I just don't care. You know, this is for me. I've spent a good amount of my life not being selfish, and I think it's okay once in a while to be a little bit selfish.
Yeah. Isn't that almost like a gift from middle age, though? Like, oh, I suddenly don't give a fucking rip about what people think of me.
It is, and I think when you have to get that way with your relationships, like we talked about earlier, where it's quality over quantity. I've always stressed to my kids, like, you don't need 100 people that know your name. You need 4 or 5 people who really give a shit about you. Because if the quality's there, the quantity doesn't matter. And now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna tell people I'm doing this shit. I'm gonna tell people I'm doing it selfishly because it 100% is for me, because I fucking think I deserve it. And if that costs me a relationship, I'm not gonna mourn that loss. I'm gonna see the value in the ones that are still around. You know what I mean? That's a hard place though for some people to get to, man.
It
You
is.
know, people pleasers, or people who love that positive attention, whether it's genuine or not. You're we've all been at a point in our lives where we want the positive attention and we couldn't give two shits if it's genuine. I'm not there anymore. I'm not. If you want to be in my life, I mean, there's a cost at the door. Um, and if you're in it for the right reason, it's a low cost. You know what I mean? I want
Yeah.
I want 4 or 5 people that no matter what situation I'm in, I'll pick up the phone and call them and they're there.
Yeah.
10, 15 minutes. And I couldn't care less about the other 2 or 300 and what they think. You know, I would call myself, I think I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm comfortably selfish. And I think that's okay.
Yeah. And I think it's really important too in the helping professions, the public service sector, where the focus is always on helping other people. It's important to identify this need to take care of yourself and to meet your own needs. And, going back to that, um, you sort of hinted at the analogy of like, that cup of compassion. You pour it out through your work. And at some point, you run low on that shit. You need to find ways to fill your own cup again. And that's like the only thing that can really give you a fair shot at like longevity in this field.
Well, you have to want the longevity. You know what I mean? We've all seen people come into this line of work and they pour that cup out in the first 1 or 2 years with no plan at all to refill it. I mean, you wouldn't drive your car all the way to empty without knowing how close a gas station is. And I think refilling it is important, but I think surrounding yourself with the right people and the right tools refill it faster than you could maybe on your own.
Yeah.
And I want that, I have a genuine desire to want that cup to stay shit at least half full,
Yeah.
because I want that longevity. And I don't think, you can bitch and complain about that cup being empty if you're not actively taking steps to work on refilling it.
Yeah. So what sort of stuff fills your cup, Mike?
Hockey.
Say more.
Hockey fills my cup. I've I gotta be honest with you, these exchange students have really filled my cup, because it's not, we know what we know, where we live, how we do things, how our families are, good or bad. But just that outside perspective of like sharing that culture and sharing those experiences. And the last 2 years, I feel like, have really accelerated me being in the position I'm in now, where shit, yeah, man, it's time to fill that cup back up. It's time to expand those experiences. It's time to expand that base of knowledge. And I've gotten lucky. I've interacted with other host parents who haven't had positive experiences. But man, I'm 2 for 2. I hit the jackpot twice, and you know, That's really, really helped more than I thought it would. I initially did it for Brady.
Yeah.
Um, he wanted to do it. My brother had done it years ago and had a great experience. And the Rico we're still in touch with. We talk regularly. And when I got my first exchange student, he called him to tell him lies about what a great family he was joining. And um, it's really filled my cup. You know, but I've gotten lucky, and I recognize that. And I maximize the value of that. And then this year I got a kid who plays hockey, and
Mm.
I've got to live that hockey parent experience without the cost of being a hockey parent, which is astronomical. But it's really helped fill my cup. It's really expanded my desire to want to be better, to want to fix what's wrong. Um, but yeah, outside of that, I mean, I enjoy being home. I'm one of those people where I'll commit to going somewhere and then spend the 2 weeks leading up to it trying to figure out which excuse I haven't used yet. Then I force myself to go and I have a great time,
Yeah.
you know? But that fills my cup, man. Just being present in the moment, really, and striving to be better has really done a lot for my self confidence, I think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You think you're this great person and you don't want to look at your flaws until they punch you in the face. And it's either too late for you or it's the perfect opportunity for you. And I've chosen to make it the perfect opportunity or try to. I'm still not there yet, but
Sure. Yeah.
I have a great life, man. My cup really is full, and it really has never not been full emotionally. I just got to let the shit that doesn't matter not drain that tank, and that's been a struggle.
Yeah. How do you how do you protect that? How do you protect your peace?
I have not found that place yet. You know, um, I take advantage of the things I know are always going to be there. But the things that need protecting, I haven't found that sweet spot yet where I can cover all those bases all at once. But yep, put inherent value on the things that have value, and I try to emphasize those. You'll see me in a good mood probably 98% of the time. Only probably 60% of that is actually genuine. I need to work on that missing 38% there. Nobody's going to be great 100% of the time. So I've made my peace with that.
Yeah.
What I need to work on is that disingenuine portion of it because faking it is exhausting.
It is.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
But my problems aren't your problems. So to project that shitty attitude onto you or whoever is unfair. But it's so tiring.
Yeah. What what do you think your journey to healing has really been like?
Bumpy, bumpy. The healing I feel like would have been exponentially easier if I had recognized it earlier. I think my impatience has also been a hindrance. You know what I mean? I'm very much just, fuck it, I'll just do it myself and it'll be done. But I can't do this myself. So that's been a hindrance to me. And also acknowledging that you're not terrible for having these problems or these thoughts or these struggles or these feelings. The the biggest hurdle for me has been impatience. Like, okay, I'm talking to somebody now. It should be better. But that ain't how it works. And if I was more patient in my life, it would probably be easier, but I'm willing to put in the work to get there. I just I wish it was tomorrow, and I know that it's never gonna be tomorrow, and that it may never be tomorrow. But that peace of mind knowing at least you're trying to find that tomorrow has value.
Yeah. And I appreciate that you say you're willing to do the work. And, that's one of those messages that I kind of, I don't know, emphasize, if not in every episode, frequently. Um, it's work. It takes effort to fix things, to make
And I
yourself
would
better.
challenge anybody who disagrees with that to tell me one thing worth doing in life that doesn't take work. You know what I mean? Parenting and producing productive members of society takes work. Worth it at every turn. Being happily married for 40, 50 years takes work. Worth it at every turn. Having a career that you genuinely love, and I mean, this is dangerous to say on something that's being recorded, but making you financially comfortable as well. You know what I mean? For the actual amount of work I do, I'm very fairly compensated. And I've been able to, but there's value in creating that life and putting in the work. You know what I mean? You have to be able to put in the work. And you have to know that eventually that work is going to pay off. Maybe not to your expectations, but you'll be better off for that work.
Has there been any involvement or like group membership or new activities that you've taken up to kind of help get you to this better place?
I think it's been the opposite for me. I think eliminating doing something 16 hours a day, sleeping 8, doing it 16 more hours. I think freeing up that time to just do nothing has actually been more helpful than, those interactions with other people. If you're left to self reflect, you find things that you maybe wouldn't have found if you were too busy. If anything, I'm guilty of the opposite. I'm guilty of finding those group settings or those busy times to detract from that time I should be reflective. But when I was younger, I mean, we were there. We were at the rink 5 days a week. We were at the bar 7 days a week. We were working to pay for hockey and beer. And I never had that time to self reflect. So when it caught up with me, which it eventually will, that was a huge mountain to climb. But then I realized there's a staircase on that mountain. You just have to be willing to take the slow route. So you chip away a little bit each day at something, and eventually you find that nugget there in the middle. But yeah, for me, it's been the complete opposite. Removing myself from a lot of those situations and forcing myself to be alone with my feelings has really been more beneficial, I think, than it would be for some.
Eliminating the extra noise.
Yeah, yeah. And really prioritizing what I am thinking and feeling. Because, I'm going to go out there in those group settings and I want to be the one making people laugh and I want to be the one invited back. But that's also, for me, brought up that inherent fear of rejection. Like, if I keep telling people no, are they going to keep inviting me? You know what I mean? I want to be invited. I just don't always want to go.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's been a scary thing for me. But like I said, the people that value you genuinely will always be there when you're ready to go be with them. But yeah, removing myself from that constant need to be on the move is one of the best roads I've ever taken. And that's okay. And I think that's what people need to know. It's okay to be selfish sometimes. It's okay to be excluding yourself from some situations. That fear is going to be there, but it's okay. At some point, you're equally as important as the people you're making important.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think that stigma is another one that's changing. I mean, I'm happy to see people accepting of other people taking time for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got to be able to give people space when they need it.
And you have to be able to be self aware enough to ask for it.
Yeah.
I think the fear is like, hey, Josh, I need some space right now. And you're like, well, fuck that. I'll go find somebody else. And then we never find our way back. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think that's scary to people.
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, more encouragement to build relationships with intentionality.
And yes, well said. The people that are there for you for the right reasons will be there for you and will also be content with you being there for yourself. And the other people, fuck them. I mean, they're not worth it anyway. Don't put a bunch of effort into somebody who's not reciprocating that effort.
Yeah.
Work wise, personal wise, relationship wise. I don't think anything should be 50-50. I believe everything should be 100-100. And if you're not getting what you give, it's okay to cut that tie.
Yeah. No. And like being able to recognize those boundaries, right? Here we are again, boundaries. The I've spoken so much about boundaries in the last month. Like it's something that is worth talking about because our generation is shit when it comes to boundaries, our own, respecting the boundaries of others. And we can all benefit from more intentional setting of boundaries for ourselves, for other people. And yeah, it's a healthy thing. It's not a negative.
Yeah, say what you want about this younger generation, and I've said plenty, but they're good at that.
They are
They're
really
good
good
at
at it.
boundary.
Yep. Mike, what would you say your best advice to someone who might be experiencing similar struggles would be?
I want to give advice based on things that I've done wrong because I think there's value in preventing other people from repeating my mistakes. You're important. Your feelings are valid. Your struggles are valid. And no matter how good you are at something, work, relationships, parenting, sports, extracurriculars, you can be the best ever. There's somebody out there better. And it's okay to seek that person out and share that knowledge and benefit from their experiences. You're not wrong for not being in a good place. You're wrong if you don't strive to get to that good place using whatever resources are available to you. My best advice to anybody, because I fucked this up in the beginning, you don't have to do it by yourself. You can't, quite honestly. It sucks to hear for anybody who's self sufficient. It sucks to hear that you can't do it by yourself, but you can. So don't. You're wasting your time trying. Find those resources and use every drop of energy you have to benefit from them. And that's okay. And that's great, actually.
What would you say your hope is for the future?
Oof. I hope everybody equally, it's cliche and stupid, but I hope everybody equally strives to do better for themselves. I mean, we talked about it earlier. That community feeling that you have after tragedies. I mean, you see it with 9/11, you saw it with the Boston Marathon bombing, you see it after tragic school shootings. That sense of community should be there all the time. My hope for the future is that we can get to that place of taking care of each other without the tragedy that brings us together. It's a lofty goal, but I think we have the ability. But again, I'm proposing a solution. I have no idea how to execute. I don't know what it is. I can do it for myself, but I can't do it for everybody else. But that would be my hope.
Well, and to that point, it's like anything else. We can only have an impact in our sphere of influence. And if we're focused on making ourselves better, pushing ourselves, trying to attain a higher standard, just through our sphere of influence, that can help other people decide to strive to be better than themselves.
Hopefully.
Right?
Yeah. And my other hope is that people see the inherent value in themselves. You know, I almost want people to be more arrogant, maybe. Realize that you have value, and it's okay to share that you think you have value. People will call it arrogant, and I think there's a balance between self confidence and arrogance, and it can be a fine line sometimes, but a little self confidence before you get to arrogance is not a bad thing. You know, invest in yourself. It took me a long time to, you know, I always feel like I've been a little more arrogant maybe than I should, more self confident than I should, but to see that inherent value in myself took me a long time. And I hope other people don't waste that time missing out on their value.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's an important discussion to have in this arena because a recurring theme is that when we're struggling with these issues of mental health, we frequently fail to see the value in ourselves. That's how you end up taking these, dark paths and self-destructive trends toward, suicide, right? People don't see the value in themselves. They don't think they are worth investing even their own time and energy. And they feel like a burden. And that's just not the fucking case. Um so yeah, trying to encourage that.
And try to share those tools because I feel like a lot of times problems snowball. And by the time they get to a point where your mental health is affected, you can trace it all the way back to this small little problem, the spark on the pile, where maybe if we had the more effective tools to deal with that small problem, it wouldn't snowball. And I think the struggle is like everybody has this idyllic, perfect image of what life's going to be, and it's only going to be if you work for it. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
The people that are handed a perfect life are a tiny percentage of this population, and then there's the rest of us. And I think having those tools to keep those small problems small are very important. But those tools exist, and it's okay to go seek them out. And I don't think it's always been the case where we championed each other finding those tools. And it's nice to see that switch around a little bit. Champion each other. Share your experience, share your benefit, share your trauma. You know what I mean? I would have never 10 years ago sat down and had a candid conversation like this with you. And, you're somebody I infinitely respect. So if I should be doing it with anybody, it should be you. But I wouldn't have done it 10 years ago. I would
That's
have
fair.
thought, what if people cherry pick all the things I said they're shitty about myself? Who cares? Who cares? I'm working on it. I want to be happy with who I am for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Not the bullshit mask I think we all put on sometimes. But yeah, man, fuck it. You have value. Just go find it and exploit the shit out of it.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Well, I think that kind of brings us to the end. Is there anything else that we didn't discuss that you felt we should have or wanted to?
Yeah, I think we need to put the spotlight on you for a little while. I think what you're doing is important, and I think you stepping up and being willing to have these conversations and share your experiences is going to make it easier. So your sphere of influence then is the people that you have on your show, and then those people have their own spheres, and I'll share it with them, and I'm sure everybody else who's been on here will share it, and then you watch that. Now that sphere is a bubble, and then it's whatever it is, and I think you deserve some credit for that, and I know you're not the type of guy who will give yourself that credit, so I'm happy to be one of the people who does it.
Well, I do appreciate it. Yeah, it's kind of a strange place to be, right? Because I don't like the spotlight, and yet here I am putting my face and voice and thoughts on a podcast that's available to the world. Um, it's weird.
Yeah, but it harkens back to EMS, right? Because if you help 1 out of 10 people, you still helped one more person than most other people in life, right? So if this thing reaches, if we have a conversation for 2.5 hours and 1 or 2 people get something out of it, that's a fucking win, man. That's a win.
Yeah, I agree.
And those wins in life are important. And having realistic expectations for those wins is important too. And so I know you hate it, but you deserve just as much of that spotlight as anybody else. I'm really glad we were able to make this work. This has been cathartic.
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, and I'm so stoked that you're willing to come on, and um, I'm glad we could make it work. It's strange to be recording an episode on a Tuesday, but yeah, I'm here for it. I didn't have any clients lined up today. I've got one in the afternoon, but
And I got to say, a perfect example, and I don't think anybody would ever know this if we didn't talk about it, but we are supposed to do this Sunday. And, I had a thing come up and it was family related. And you were the first one to say that shit is way more important. And, you know, it just endeared me more to you and to our relationship and to our friendship and to what we are to each other, hopefully. And so, yeah, man, I want to thank you publicly for saying that. I mean, it's just a text and it's just words, but to me, they were validating, they were important, and they were, really focused me even more on getting here with you eventually. So, thanks for that.
dude, anytime. And
And we won, and we beat Sparta. So, fucking 3 for 3.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm glad that had the flexibility to do it. And like, honestly, when it comes to this project, it is so reliant on others and their schedules. And I don't ever want participation in this project to be a burden. So if I can be flexible with how this shit comes together, uh, to increase participation and gain buy-in, fuck it, I'm here for it, man. Like that's the name of the game, right? Like, um, yeah, it's not about me. It's about trying to, you know, build the community.
Yeah, and I feel like you're doing a good job with quality over quantity too, because I watched, I wanted to prep, and I watched all the past episodes I could find and the little clips, and also I wanted to be better than those people, but uh, but that the one constant is the comfort that the people you're getting have with talking about that stuff. And that made me more comfortable talking about that stuff. And hopefully, you and I talking for 2.5 hours on a Tuesday will help a couple of more people come on here and be comfortable with talking about it, because it's important and it is okay. And, you know, I think there's a ton of value in the people you choose, and your willingness to be accepting of their answers, open minded, to let them ramble a lot like I'm doing right now. Um, so you're the shining example of quality over quantity, and I hope that that continues. And I hope more people see a bunch of regular dudes and regular women just getting together and talking about this shit, man. It's cool.
I hope so. And, like I think this is a great opportunity to say, look, you know, I'm finishing up recording season 1 here, and I'm starting to look toward season 2. I expect to start recording maybe, August timeframe. And that said, like, while I still have a list of people that I need to work through, I'm looking for more. Um, I'm looking to find people that aren't necessarily within my, you know, group of contacts. Like, I don't have any problem talking to people I don't know. I credit it a lot to both the Army and working in EMS, where you have a limited amount of time to build rapport and talk about serious shit, right? Um, and it's just been such a huge uh positive for me in my work, being able to bridge that gap between me and another person, even if it's remotely like this. So yeah, I welcome anybody who's interested in sharing their story, because as you said, their stories are all valid. Their experiences and their struggles are all valid. And hashing them out in this format can be very helpful to people that are struggling quietly, struggling by themselves. Um, so hit me up, the front seat debrief at gmail.com, and let's have a conversation.
And I'll advocate for you a little bit. You'll find very quickly into the process that it's a fucking conversation worth having. And I think even if we didn't have the relationship that we do outside of this tablet, um, that comfort level in talking to you, I've seen with every person you've had on here. So I think you need to take the credit for that as much as you probably don't want to.
I appreciate
You
it.
can have anybody with any knowledge and any experience and any trauma and any ideas, but if their outlet isn't there, if the quality of conversation isn't being reciprocated, then they're not going to do it. That's just, you know, inherent nature is to be like, well, you clearly don't give a shit about what I'm saying, so I'm just going to fill this time with idle chit chat. You know what I mean? But yeah, you reciprocate that to people, and there's a fuck ton of value in that. So I know you don't like to hear it, but that only makes me want to do it more.
I appreciate it.
If my compliments make you a little uncomfortable, then the whole day is a win.
Well, they do, so you
Good,
win.
perfect. Well, I'm happy as a clam then.
Excellent. Mike, thank you so much for taking
Yeah,
time out of
man.
your
Thank
week. Best of luck with your interview.
Oof, I forgot about that. Oh, okay.
Well, thank you for sharing. I think this is a great conversation. I know people will find value in it.
I hope so, man. And thank you for having that platform available to people like me to hopefully positively influence maybe a handful of people.
You know, it's one of those things like maybe it's the social worker in me, but like if you have a platform that you can use to promote the voices of others, you need to. So,
Yeah, but I think that's been in your heart long before you were a social worker.
well,
I
maybe
mean,
I was just
just
destined
some
to
of
be a
our
social worker.
just some of our garage smoking conversations, you know, that desire for us to be honest and open and judgment free. I think that was there long before you had that piece of paper.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Usually,
All right. Well, I think that does it for this episode. If you liked what you heard here today, give us a like, share, subscribe, leave us a review on whatever podcast platform you happen to be consuming this through. Every little bit helps, and we appreciate your time. Take care, and we'll see you on the next one.
How's life?
man, we're getting through it.
Yeah?
Yeah, how you guys doing?
I mean, all things considered.
You sound like Mickey Mouse on my end.
Like Mickey Mouse. Oh.
And then I can hear myself too. Is there a way to turn that off? There we go.
How about now?
Yeah, you sound good. And I'm off. We're perfect.
Excellent. Yeah, I didn't realize I had fucked with the pitch thing because...
Ew.